a few weeks ago. I was supposed to speak here, and my talk title was Time Out. And in the divine's wonderful sense of humor and wisdom, I had my own time out in that I had a visit from a little flu bug. And as I found out over the years, when I don't feel physically well or in any sense well, it's all the more important for me to keep my daily spiritual practice. So one morning while hosting this little flu bug, during my spiritual practice, I heard my teacher, Emma Curtis Hopkins, speak to me. Now, I consider her to be my personal teacher, but she actually is really known as the mother of New Thought because she mentored and taught Ernest Holmes, our founder, and she also mentored and taught Charles Fillmore, founder of Unity, and many other New Thought leaders. So what I heard that morning was, the highest spiritual practice is to let it be. Now, I've heard this many times before and repeated it just as often, but that morning what I heard was that to let it be is to take time out and go within for time in. When I was a child, my mother would punish me by giving me a time out, which meant standing in a corner facing the wall for about 10 minutes to think over the behavior for which I was being called out for. Now, I have a strong inkling that perhaps many of us were given similar timeouts by our parents, and perhaps those of us who became parents themselves gave timeouts to their own children. So I believe this was my first introduction to the concept of time out. But because it was given as a punishment, I didn't receive it all that enthusiastically. Then as I grew into adulthood, there were occasions when I would watch a few minutes of a televised football game, usually with some guy I was dating just to appease him into believing I was interested in what he was interested in. Not at all. Anyway, what I noticed was that when a team was falling behind and seemed to be goofing up, their coach would be off at the sidelines fuming until he let off steam by blowing into a whistle and calling time out, associating my time out with their time out. I thought it was because the coach was punishing them, berating them for their fumbles on the field. Only later did I discover that what was actually happening during these timeouts was strategizing for a new way to play so as to win the game. What was happening was actually what was supposed to happen when I was given timeout as a child. That's looking over my mistake and contemplating how not to make the same mistake and do better. And then when I started working, I experienced another kind of time out. It didn't feel like a punishment or a strategizing session. It felt traumatizing. And that was when my computer would crash, and I'd have to wait for a technician to get it started up again if it didn't reboot. That waiting felt excruciating because I felt I had no control as to what was happening. And for many years, feeling I was in control was essential to my feeling safe. Sometimes people would label me as a type A personality, which I rejected because my concept of control was to give the appearance of being totally zen while behind the scenes working nonstop with a diligent persistence of getting a job done, no matter how tired I felt or how many seeming obstacles I faced. Now, I don't know if any of you can relate to this or perhaps to all of this, but the bottom line is that that little mantra, let go, let God, that wasn't my way of life, but rather just a mindless platitude that I babble, let go, let God, even while consciously choosing to engage in spiritual studies and practices. Now, my idea of let go and let God was when I was forced to stop and take a time out. Much like how my earthly parents would give me a forced time out, I now felt as an adult that my heavenly parent, bless you, who I call my Father, Mother, God, was forcing me with a time out. And it wasn't something that I enjoyed, such as when, as I mentioned, I'd be determined to finish a work project, before calling it a day, and then my computer would crash. So I couldn't do anything more. Or when I would have free time, and I would decide that during that free time, I would plan a driving destination to get there at a certain time. So I would plan all this and have my traffic route planned and the time to get there. And then there would be a traffic snarl that would cause me to stop and wait for it to untangle. So I'd sit in the traffic and bring out my to-do list, see what I could cross out while I was waiting, which was usually very little, usually just nothing. So as you may have gathered by now, I wasn't a total fan of time out. But then in ministerial school, I learned about the concept of liminality, of being in the liminal space. Dictionary.com defines liminal as occupying a position at or on both sides of a boundary or threshold. So the example is, I was in the liminal space between past and present. Or liminal can be relating to transitional or initial space between past and present, or the initial stage of a process. One of my professors gave this description of liminal space, which I really relate to. He called it God's waiting room, waiting to be called to step over the next threshold into a new space. Now, I don't know about you, but I find waiting rooms to be many things, depending upon what I'm waiting for. If it's for a doctor's or dentist's appointment, sometimes I can feel a bit of anxiousness. Or if I'm waiting for an appointment at the DMV, I can find myself being preoccupied by people watching until I'm no longer entertained, and then start to feel restless with a bit of resentment. Or if I'm waiting for a job interview, I usually go into one of those fancies of my imagination and start to write, direct, and produce my own movies in my mind of stories about the people I see coming in and out of the waiting room. So there is a plethora of feelings and experiences that can occur while sitting in a waiting room waiting. Yet, what I've learned is that waiting is not passive, especially when we're waiting in a liminal space to cross over a threshold and enter a new space. In her book, When the Heart Waits, Spiritual Direction for Life's Sacred Questions, author Sue Monk Kidd writes, when you're waiting, you're not doing nothing. You're doing the most important something there is. You're allowing your soul to grow up. If you can't be still and wait, you can't become what God created you to be. Or as Ernest Holmes states, we're not waiting for God to show up. God shows up through us, as us. So liminality is the space where we are in collaboration with God, preparing to cross a threshold into newness. This preparing is consciously choosing to give ourselves a time out where we calm down and contemplate in silent stillness and delve deep within the spaciousness of the heart. This is the time out that is actually time in, going within. God's waiting room of liminal space is preparing us for the next unfolding of our life journey. And it's a necessary part of the journey. Just as taking a break from driving and stopping at a rest stop along the highway is a necessary time out for our body to stretch and relieve itself and take in new views. So there are many rest stops, or quite a few rest stops along the way from here to Phoenix that provide not just restrooms, but also have some really amazing views. Yet sometimes my experience has been that it seems more efficient to just drive right by them in the rush to get to our destination. But it's not efficient at all. It's only contributing to the illusion of having accomplished something of seemingly significant importance, such as getting to someplace on time. Now, I'm not going to advocate that you follow my time of arrival, which is either right on the dot or a minimum of 5 minutes being late. But I'm also inviting you to perhaps do as I'm learning to do, and that is prepare ahead and allow extra time to take a time out and stop to stretch and take in the views. I definitely do this in my spiritual practice. And as I said, I'm learning to do this when embarking on journeys across geographics. That said, there are times when no matter how much I know that whether it be a physical, emotional, or spiritual journey, I must allow space and time to prepare, but I don't. I simply don't give myself the space of time to prepare because what that preparation actually is waiting. For example, packing my suitcase for a week-long vacation. It's not just preparing for the vacation, but waiting for the upcoming vacation. And many times this waiting can bring up uncertainty and anxiety because I can't control how my vacation will go because of what I don't know. Will there be unexpected rain? And if so, do I pack just an umbrella or do I also include a raincoat? Or will there be a heat wave and then do I bring lightweight clothing? But then what if there's no heat wave? So I don't know if any of you have gone through this, but yeah. And so as one of my friends who travels with her husband 7 months out of the year tells me, the most stressful time of our vacations is the day before we leave home. That is many times how it can feel while we're preparing, while we're waiting to leave the home of our liminal space and cross the threshold into a new home, a new space. In her book, Sue Monk Kidd shares this story about the grace of waiting. A woman who used to work at a fast food restaurant once commented that the people who lined up at her register sometimes reminded her of people lining up in church on Sunday morning. They seemed to be looking for the same thing, a quick and easy way to reduce the hunger inside, what she called Mac faith. That need for a quick fix glared at me from my own life. Wasn't I craving formulaic answers and swift solutions to deep problems? I yearned for an express spirituality that would work at the same speed as my computer, providing a ready transformation and answers to my prayers. Frankly, I resented the fact that God didn't work that way when everything else in my world did. What has happened to our ability to dwell in unknowing, to live inside a question and coexist with the tensions of uncertainty? Where is our willingness to incubate pain and let it birth into something new? What has happened to patient unfolding, to endurance? These things are what form the ground of waiting. And if you look carefully, you'll see that they're also the seedbed of creativity and growth, what allows us to do the daring and break through into newness. We've underestimated the presence of grace among us. We've built up a callus over it with cynicism and certainties that render us incapable of being surprised. If we're to wait, we must relearn the extravagance of grace. So what I've personally learned is that to be able to wait with grace is to be able to be in the moment as a calm and peaceful presence, living in a state of trusting gratitude, knowing that this moment shall now pass into this moment and into the next, and that the liminality of waiting is enfolding us with its tender care to help smooth the way of making an upcoming transition. But if we can't trust while waiting in this space of liminality, then it can become a space of doubt, doubt that there's a higher powerful good that is here for us, as us. And this doubt is what is sometimes called the dark night of the soul. I don't know about you, but I've lived in this space of seeming darkness. In fact, I lived in this space for almost 3 years. And this was after I finished my practitioner studies. It was 4 years after I had graduated. And I firmly believed at that time that nothing could rock my foundation of knowing and embodying the truth that I am an individualized expression and emanation of God. And so I am all that God is: love, light, peace, joy, harmony, abundance, wholeness, power, freedom. But that wasn't at all what happened. During this time of the dark night of the soul, I found myself questioning why I was on this spiritual journey and what was God doing with me and why. I didn't like the feeling of constant uncertainty and anxiety over not knowing what was going on and what would happen next. And more than that, I was angry. I was angry at God for what I believed was the cause of this dark turbulence. But I still did my spiritual practice every day, no matter what. And some days, my journal looked like the notebook of a grade school child with huge, loopy writing expressing the anger and hurt I was feeling. And when it seemed that I couldn't write it out, I would then resort to trying to draw it out with stick figures and full, rounded faces, shooting darts out of their eyes and spewing harsh words in cartoon caption bubbles. Looking back on this, I'm reminded of how when one of my friends sent her 5-year-old child to the corner for a timeout, she found afterward that the corner was covered with cartoon crayon drawings. I can see now that I was acting out against my own timeout very much in the same way as this 5-year-old had. Yet, as much as I didn't like how this dark night of the soul didn't look pretty, I did trust that whatever it was that I was going through, that it was important that I go through it and not do a spiritual bypass of saying it's all good and not believing for 1 minute that it was good. So just think about it. In any important, intimate relationship, we must be authentically honest with each other or else it doesn't work. I knew I had to be honest with God if I wanted to move beyond this dark night of the soul. Then one morning while meditating, I felt my nose tingle and my eyes start to water. And I knew it was my heart breaking open to make more space, to receive the grace of my blessing of being in this liminal space. It was with surprise and awe that I witnessed myself experiencing this gratitude and let it take over my body so that I became soaked in it. This was gratitude for knowing on a level beyond thoughts or words that I was loved by something much more powerful than me. That this something loved me no matter what my behavior, no matter if I felt anger and resentment toward it, no matter what. It loved me beyond measure, and I could feel it. And this was the breaking open of my heart to the grace of being grateful for all that is, no matter what. Knowing it is all part of the mysterious ways and means of God operating as absolute good through each and every aspect and area of my life, through each and every cell and fiber of my being, through all, as all. This is how Ernest Holmes sums it up. There should not be any sense of hurry or worry about this. Just a calm, peaceful sense of reality. Let the law work through and express itself in the experience. Now, the law is another word for God, for the highest vibration of good that there is. And so Ernest, in his own earnest way, is saying what Emma says, and that is the highest spiritual practice, is to let it be. That dark night of the soul experience was many years ago. But what I learned from it is that whatever we are experiencing shall pass, and that we can't hurry or worry the moment into a new moment. The law, that being God, operates in and as and through us, so we can truly only experience one moment at a time. There are times, however, when I know that I'm prepared to cross over a new threshold, and yet when I'm stepping over from one space into a new space, I can feel myself freezing mid-step, metaphorically and metaphysically, on the level of the emotional and spiritual bodies. This freezing is an instinctive reaction of fear that I may feeling about what is coming next, not knowing what it will be. And it's also a conscious awareness that I'm choosing to halt, that I want to put the brakes on whatever change is about to occur. So I was recently at a spiritual book study held by a local church of another faith tradition, when I heard one woman share about how, as someone with Parkinson's, she finds herself freezing whenever she has to walk over a threshold. Her body will literally freeze in fear, and so she steps back away from the threshold until someone can help her make that crossing. Hearing this, I knew that this is what had been happening to me, what I had been doing. And I knew that I had been given a time out to go within, preparing for the crossing, but that I was freezing mid-step over the threshold because of fear of the unknown, and an attempt to thwart the forward movement. What this woman said was so profound and insightful for me that I asked her permission to share it, which she gave to me in the hopes that it might help others as it helped me. But I also know that no matter what I do or don't do, there's always, always a higher good at work through me. And that is that no matter what all I do, whether freezing or pouting or rebelling in anger against it, it will not stop it or hinder it from doing what it is here to do. And that is to make itself known and evident, to demonstrate itself as this powerful presence of divine love that is seeking to express itself all the more expansively, deeply, and fully in and as and through us. That said, we also can most definitely consciously choose to be in alignment with this good, with this divine love. And by doing so, we make the way for an ease of flow. Again, quoting Ernest Holmes, "And back of me is the potential of the universe. I declare new horizons will open for me, new ideas will flow to me, and a better world of joy and peace will be revealed." Crossing over new thresholds means we have been incubated in God's waiting space and are now prepared to step into new horizons of greater good. But we can't do this unless we give ourselves time out to go within. Again, this waiting is not passive. This is giving ourselves the gift of being present in the moment, of not resisting the comfort and safety offered in the liminal space of incubation, knowing that we are preparing for new growth, new transitions, and new transformations. Think of the stalk of summer corn and how it stays on the stalk for as long as necessary for its kernels to grow and transform into nuggets of sweet goodness. I'll close with a quote from Creative Mind and Success, also written by Ernest Holmes. "In the silence of the soul's communion with the great cause of all being, into the stillness of the absolute, into the secret place of the Most High, back of the din and the ceaseless roar of life, we shall find a resting place and a place of real spiritual power." Our real spiritual power is being able to wait with graceful patience and gratitude in God's waiting room, knowing that we're not waiting for God, but God is ever so lovingly, patiently waiting for us to completely trust and realize we have all we need already within us, as us. For God has created every one of us, all of us, beloved, out of and into itself. Its representation of itself. So we are truly all that God is. We are the love that God is, the power that God is, the presence that God is, the peace that God is, the abundance that God is, the wholeness that God is. And so now, to close this in prayer, I invite you to close your eyes and listen to these words as written by Ernest Holmes. He writes about peace, but you can substitute any attribute of God that you may wish to experience at a higher frequency of vibration, a finer, clearer tune of truth. The peace that is within you is not something separate from God. It is not something that bombards you from without. This peace is something that expands from within. Always this peace had been in you. Always this peace has nestled at the center of your being, ready to reveal its perfection and harmony. Peace stands at the door of your consciousness and awaits your acceptance of it. However, it does not stand outside your door, waiting for entrance, so much as it stands inside, waiting to be expressed in everything you do.